this is now what I'm touching on is studying. This is number one, studying in general, so in terms of your weekly schedule. But number two, my focus, what I'm really going to be focusing on is when you're studying for exams. Like I said, you've probably got a month and a half to prep for exams. If you think about that, that's not a lot of time. How quickly has the month gone already, right? So I'm going to go through the strategies you should be using while you are preparing exams, and then you can use them in general as well. Number one is distributed studying. Cramming does not work. In terms of memory, your retention is less. People that can distribute their studying sessions over a longer period, like let's say instead of studying for week before exams, you're studying for 2 or 3 weeks before exams. Research shows that your recall is better. Because why is that? Because you've had more time to commit to memory the information. And it takes time for our brain to take information from short-term memory to long-term memory. If it's not in long-term memory, it's lost. Why? Because we've got so much information coming at us every single day. So the brain has to categorize what's important and what's not important. It'll throw it out. So if you're doing 1 week of studying before the exam, some of that information is lost because in that week, you also busy things as well. So it's important that you have distributed study sessions over a longer period of time. So you then learn more, and you are then able to actually recall more. Okay, so that's very, very important. How long, last time you wrote exams, how long did you study before you wrote the exam? I see some smiles in the room, which means you must cram a little bit. You know what, you might as well not cram, because research shows 50% of what you cram. So you'd rather get a good night's sleep than cram. Okay. But I'm just indicating to you what you should be doing so it helps with your memory. Okay. Next one is having intensive study sessions. Intensive study sessions means you're actively involved in that study session. Okay. And we're going to go through some of these that are active study strategies. But your study session should be short and effective. Okay, not you. Okay, let's say you are studying for, you say 3 hours. Then you break your 3 hours up into what we call intense study sessions. You'll see here what are the steps. Step number one, you need to set a goal. Before you start studying, you have to have a goal. So the goal, I need to complete 2 chapters in this time period, right? You need to be specific about that goal so you can measure your progress, how far you are, do you manage your time a bit well. Then you study with action and focus. Action and focus means, and I'm going to touch on it, rereading is not a action strategy in terms of studying, but we'll go through maybe ways of reading that can then be an active study strategy. So include that. An example of an active study strategy is testing yourself. That should be included in terms of studying. Then take a break. Okay. Our concentration as adults is 40 to 50 minutes long, and then to lose concentration. So even in this workshop, you might lose concentration close to the end, but that's why we need to take a quick break. It doesn't have to be a long break, 5 to 10 minutes. And then you review what you've studied. Then you start next hour again. You set your next goal. You do your intensive study time. Then you take a break again and again. Okay, so this is how it actually helps you even with procrastination. If you're someone who procrastinates, this is a great strategy to use because number one, it gets you started on time. Number two, you get a bit of a break before you start your next batch. So you can block off time to study. Let's say you've blocked off 3 hours. In those 3 hours, you use each hour in this way. Does that make sense for everyone? Okay, great. Okay, so why did I indicate? Yes, I indicated with memory, we need to distribute our study sessions out. But the other issue is when it comes to our memory, is the only way we can indicate to the brain what is important is through repetition. And then your brain then has a signal that this is important, I need to remember it. It can then shift the information from short term to long term, which means this is why you need time, because you need to repeat the content that you study a couple of times. They say more than 3 times prior to writing an exam, because how our brain works, can you see on the screen that forgetting curve? When you study material for the first time on day 1, your retention is 100%. 7, it's less than 20%. So if you've not engaged in that material again, and you haven't put in more study sessions, it means you've forgotten majority of that content already. But can you see in the second graph there, if you are reviewing it, it can pick up your retention level. So if you want to remember something, you have to repeat the practice of it. Doesn't mean you must just reread. You repeat the practice of that content. You test yourself on that content again. You summarize that content again. If you're auditory learner, you listen to that content again. And like I'm saying, more than 3 times. Okay, I know it sounds like a lot, but if you've got your schedule and you've distributed your study sessions, then you can do that. You can find ways to do that. Okay, and then next is, I've said this a few times, and I'm sorry for being maybe a stuck record, but rereading is not helpful. It's helpful to take the information in when you read, but rereading is like looking at a puzzle that's already completed. What you want to do when you're studying is you want to put the puzzle together, because that allows your brain to be actively engaged in studying. Otherwise, when you're looking at the puzzle, you're just hoping the information's going to go in. But if you actively engaging in it, then it becomes better. So, and at a university level, you're going to find that what we're testing you on is about application. It's not just a memory as in what it was like at school. So you have to also read to understand. You have to check your understanding. The best way to do that is by creating questions for yourself, and also being able to, at the end of that session where you've read, answer those questions. You see, even with that practice, you might find, oh, I've got to go to reread something because I didn't remember what the answer is for this. This helps your brain engage again with the material. Okay, so I've got a reading method here that's called the SQ3R method. And there's a couple of steps to that method. Number 1 is to survey. So go through the material that you're going to be reading. Create some questions, even if it's just questions around the headings or questions around the concepts that you can see you're going to cover. So create questions around what you're intending to study or take from the study session. And then you have your 3 R's. Now you read, then you recite. So out loud, you recite the information you've just read in your own words. Then you review. So you try, and once you've recited, you try and answer the questions. If you can't answer the questions, or some questions you're not sure, you go back to the material and you review it. Again, if you are listening to this method, it allows you to repeat. So that's what we want with memory. So this reading method actually helps you in repetition. You have to go back and review. You have to say it out loud after reading through it in order to recite it. Each time you do it, this is starting to commit it to memory. Okay, I just want to see if I've left anything out here. The reason why the recite is there is because we want to put the information into long-term memory, and then it's really important to try and answer those questions. If you find you can't answer your own questions, please engage in peer discussions in your forum groups. Your lecturer details are on your study material. You can email your lecturer. No question that is too silly. If it doesn't make sense to you, it's important for you to understand it so that you can answer your exam questions. Summarizing is a study strategy as well. We had a workshop on summarizing as well. If you didn't attend that one, get the recording and read and go through it, because there's methods of summarizing that you can use. I'm just highlighting one method here, but summarizing helps with your learning and it helps with your retention, you remembering. It helps you revise, and this method is called the Cornell note-taking method. But the nice thing about this note-taking method is it engages you in doing a summary. So remember, there's a space where you teach yourself in the study cycle. In that space where you're teaching yourself, you are making notes. So you use the note-taking method to make notes. Here you can see it's very simple. There's the layout on the screen. You put the title of the section you are covering. You write down in your main notes there. You write down. You can use abbreviations or shorthand, but you start taking notes as you are teaching yourself or reading. On the side, you put keywords of maybe concepts, learning concepts that are covered in that section, and you can create questions. Right at the bottom of your page, you start your summary. Okay, so this helps you now when you are reviewing your notes to go back to your summary. Is there anything I've left out? And summarizing really helps you to pull everything together. It helps you to reorganize the information, to draw out the important points that you need to remember. It helps with your comprehension of the content, because you've got to put those concepts together and make sense of those concepts. Right, then the next is practice testing. So practice testing is one of the most highly effective ways of studying. It has hundreds of years of research to show that actually it's one of the best ways for you to remember what you are studying. Sometimes we shy away from this. If I think about it with children, there's some children, when you say, let's say they're studying for a test, come, let me test you. They say, no, I don't want you to test me. So because of the idea of a test and the anxiety that we may get around it, we might not engage in doing this. But it's one of the most researched and effective ways of studying. So you have to, in your intense study session, you have to test yourself. Besides a summary, beside you maybe, and you can do that with flashcards, you can do that with questions maybe from your tutorial letter, you can do that with questions in your textbook, you can do that with engaging on the forum. Maybe there's questions that people have put on the forum. So practice testing is very, very important. It has to be part of, it's one of your active study strategies. It has to be part of your studying session. And it engages two things: retrieval practice. Retrieval practice just means you getting the information that is now in memory. Why is that important? It's important because when you write an exam, that's the thing you're engaging with, retrieval practice. Your brain has to retrieve. And then you're engaging in active recall, which is, now that you've studied the information, you actively recalling the information. So that's why it's one of the best ways, because it actually prepares your brain to do the very thing that you're going to be doing when you sit for the exam. Okay, so it helps exercise your memory retrieval in your long-term memory, and it also increases your long-term memory. With practice testing, you can also use self-explanation, which means explaining that concept either to yourself or to a peer. It's helpful to a peer because then you can get feedback and they can say, that's not how I understood it. And you can kind of figure out certain things. When you are testing yourself, do not ask easy questions only. The exam will not entail easy questions. And you can use things like flashcards, and if you can get past papers, if the tutorial office can give you some questions or a tutorial. And then obviously you can also use internet. You can use your forums and ask past students for examples of assignments they've done, etc. Okay, so this really, really is important. If you're not using it in your studying session, you are actually leaving out a very important aspect in terms of your preparation and in terms of memory. Okay, so it refines your ability to retain and recall information. Research has shown that even if you are attempting to retrieve something, it helps you solidify it into memory, which means it's fine to get it wrong. When you test yourself, it's absolutely fine. There's nothing, it's still helping you remember. Okay, so attempting it is important. It's not always about getting it right from the get-go. Then you can also use something called concept mapping. So you've probably heard of mind mapping, but concept mapping is a little bit different. This is a way of testing yourself. So it's a diagram that depicts the relation concepts. Let's say you've done 2 chapters of your textbook and you want to depict the relationship between those concepts. So that's how you use it. It's also very well a research learning technique, but how you use it in terms of practicing is you do it with your textbook closed. So that's the key, because now you're using it as practice testing. Once you've gone through that chapter, you've done your summaries already. Now you want to test yourself. How do those concepts I can remember, how do they relate to each other? You use your textbook or your study material. You then do your mapping of the different content. Remember, it's fine to get it wrong. It still helps with memory. And even the nice thing with the good thing about getting it wrong while you're doing practice testing is that actually you will remember that you got it wrong. So you will go and look for what is the actual answer for that, which helps you remember even better. So don't shy away from getting things wrong. It's okay. And I think that leads to my next point is, when you are testing yourself and get things wrong, that's fine. It means you need to go and actually figure out what that answer is, what that is, or what's going on. It can either be 2 things. 1, your understanding of it. 2, you haven't actually engaged with the content enough to remember it. So that's the indication when you get things wrong. Oh, okay, I've only gone through this content once or twice. This is probably why I'm getting this wrong, or I can't remember. Okay. And it actually makes your study sessions more efficient when you are able to see where you're going wrong and then be able to go and find those particular answers, because now you know you're covering something in a more comprehensive manner. Okay, then we have another practice, which is interleaved practice. And here it's again about self-testing. The most important thing is you have to mix it up. You mix it up because, remember I said you lose attention. Our attention span is not long as even as, and when I say adults, your brain is fully grown at 25, okay? So, I mean, even as a fully grown 25-year-old or older than that, you've got a specific attention span. Okay, so you need to mix it up. You don't test yourself in one method all the time. You only test yourself in multiple choice. No, you have to use different problems when you test yourself, because it helps you learn better. Like I said, your attention decreases when you practice one concept over and over and over. If you're only practicing in one way, you lose attention, okay? So it helps your working memory helps you keep that working memory and attention. It also helps with your overall understanding, because if you're testing yourself in more than one way or on more than one concept within that particular chapter, then you can understand something a bit more broadly. So test yourself using different concepts. The other thing around interleave practice that has come up in research is that you could even, again, this really depends on your learning style though. So like yesterday, one of the learning styles, I know I am an assimilator. So with that learning style, we don't like to multitask. Okay. Some learning styles, multitasking is something that the person does like to do. But with interleave practice, what they've highlighted in research is that what you can also do is in your study session, maybe you've set 3 hours out and then you've broken it up into those your intensive study sessions. You can do more than one module. You can maybe do 2 modules. That just helps the brain shift between, but they say for it to be effective, you need to do 2 modules that are not related to each other. Because if it's too closely related, then the brain doesn't distinguish well between those two. Okay, so that also really helps with learning. If you don't just, for those 3 hours, you're only doing accounting module, right? You can mix it up, do accounting and economics. Okay. And then using images or pictures when you are learning a lot of text. This is really, this helps when you are doing a subject that is just a lot of a theory. It's theory laden, right? It's got a lot of theory. So with a lot of text, it's good to use diagrams and graphs because that actually helps boost your memory. If there's no diagrams in your textbooks, you can create the diagrams, the mind mapping. You can see on the screen there, sometimes it's just good to be able to take that text, break it up into a picture, because our brains, when we can think of that picture in the exam, it can bring up the content, right? So that's why those pictures, or even, it doesn't even have to be pictures, it can be like a concept diagram. If you can remember the mind map, if you can picture the mind map in your mind, it helps bring up the actual memory of the content. And then this is really important because at university level, you are thinking about application. Your questions are going to be around application. It's not just going to be around, that's why you'd find, even if you have multiple choice, it's tricky now. It's not like when you're at school and there's a clear answer between no. It's now a little bit tricky. Why is it tricky? Because now it's about application. How have you understood that theory? How can you apply it to an actual example? So in your study sessions, besides the testing yourself and the summaries, you have to find some examples. How is this theory applied? I'm learning about law. What is a case that relates to this? And how would this principle be applied in that case? So especially you're going to be dealing with sometimes abstract concepts that in terms of theories can be very abstract, and you're learning it, you're understanding it, but in real life, where would you use this? At school, we never had to think about where would we use this in real life. It was just about learning it. So you had to learn algebra. Where are you using it now? Maybe nowhere, right? But at university it's different because we're prepping you for the world of work. So there has to be an application of what you're learning because you're going to have to do that in your day-to-day job. So it's much easier to remember an abstract concept if you have an example. So for everything you are learning, try and find an example. The internet is great for this. So find an example. You're learning economics, you're learning a specific GDP economics. How does GDP even apply to us here in South Africa? What is our GDP? This is how you then begin to understand and apply. And then we have something called elaborative interrogation. Key concept here is really for you to generate an explanation for a fact that you're learning. So you have to, how do you explain this to somebody else? That's really the important part. So you'll remember facts if you can ask questions about why they are so or how they fit together. This is called elaboration. So you're taking your study material and you're asking certain questions. It helps, what it helps to do in your brain is it's integrating your new information into information you might have before. So you know something about economics, but now you've learned a new concept. It has to integrate that together to create understanding, which helps with memory, which helps with application. Okay, so it creates these larger networks of information in your brain, and then it's easier to remember. Good understanding creates really good memory. If you don't understand something, you'll find that, remember the forgetting curve? If you don't understand something at the point that you've learned it, you're going to go on that slope really quickly. So you've got to understand it, and then obviously you've got to review it. So some of the questions that in terms of studies that is important, the main question there in the middle of the screen is why. That's your most important question when you're actually learning something new. Why? You have to explain that. You must be able to explain that new thing that you've learned. So in the majority of studies, people are asking questions like, why does this make sense? Why is this true? Why would this fact be true in this situation in comparison to this situation? So let's take law, for example. Why would this principle be applied in law in this situation, but it's not applied in that situation? If you can understand that and explain that, then it's going to commit that to your memory, and that's going to help you in your exams. And then I did time management, I think 2 weeks ago or so. You have to have a study schedule. The thing about all of these study strategies is they're great, they're effective, they are well proven and well researched. You can't use them unless you have a schedule that you're going to use. There's two types of schedules. One is a weekly schedule of how you normally engage with your studies in your study cycle. The other schedule is the one when it comes to exams. Those are two different things. At school, you would only engage in the exam one for yourself. As a distance learning student, you've got to do the whole thing for yourself. At school, they created the routine. Your own routine. So you have to have both. You have to have a weekly schedule. And in a weekly schedule, it's all your activities in the day. It's chores. It's everything so that you can manage your time well. And if you haven't drawn something like that up, or you haven't been to that workshop, you're welcome to book a session and I can help you do that. And even when it comes closer to exams, I can also help you do that. Okay, so in terms of counseling, if that's what you need help with and you're struggling with your time management, you can book a session, So you've got to have a schedule. You've got to be able to create a routine, to be able to stick to it so you can use all of these strategies that we've gone over today. And then it's really important to eliminate distraction when you are studying. And the reason why is and you lose attention. What research is really showing is that then when you go back, you need more time than what you allocated. Let's say you allocated an hour, now you get distracted by your cell phone. Okay, so you've lost your attention span. By the time you get back to it, where was I? And then you've lost some time, which means you've got to get that time back. This impacts your time management. Okay. And then I'd always say, like I said, with that intensive study session, it's important to have that 5-minute break. Even if you stretch, even if you go get a glass of water or you get an apple, it just helps the because you start losing attention after that 50 minutes. It helps the brain just to refresh and then get back into it. And then, of course, as a distance learning student, studying has to be a priority. You are a student and a teacher. So you're teaching yourself and you are studying, which means it has to be a priority. It has to feature in your week. It has to feature in your day, and then it has to feature when it's coming close to exams. Okay, so I'm at the end of my section, and I'm good for time. I'm going to hand over to Beauty now, and she's going to take you through memorizing. Remember, for those online, if you have any questions, please pop it in the chat and we can address that once we're done with the presentation.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much for such informative information. And I hope our students benefited a lot from this. Giving Beauty an opportunity to project her presentation. May I request Sane to post the evaluation link for Michelle's presentation in the meantime. And then on the other hand, Michelle will try to answer some of the questions that are on the chat. And then afterwards, we will then take all the questions after all the presentation. Thank you, Beauty. You may proceed.
Thank you so much, Program Director. For those that are in the room, I've given you your evaluation on paper. That is the evaluation of the workshop today. You can, obviously, if it's distracting you while you're listening to Beauty, then you can fill it in right at the end. But I just want you to have it now, because it's important for us to be able to evaluate the service and also know what other services and other workshops you would appreciate us giving you. Okay, over to you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for such informative, insightful presentation. So I'll be taking you through memorization. So there's a difference between memorizing information and cramming. We can dive deeper into memorizing information. Let's look at where we're coming from, maybe from high school, actually high school. What happened the day when you memorize information and then in the exam, boom, you are stuck. So students, before we I can take you through what is memorization, different types of memorization. Can we, at least those who can share the stories? You know, I think sometimes it can be emotional stories, funny stories. What happened when you memorize the whole essay and then during the exam, one word, you forgot what, the whole thing faded away. So is another question, as I'm gonna take you through memorization, if we can answer this, for students in person, just 1%, and then students online, they can just post their respond and comment on the Q&A. Between cramming and memorization, which one it best works for exams? Okay, students on percent, they'll say memorization. So memorization is simply understanding content, understanding concepts, whatever that you want to memorize before the exam, whatever that you need before the exams, right? So with our presentation today, we'll be looking at what is memorization. We'll be looking at the ways to increase our information retention. Again, we have senses, like the normal senses that we have, sight, visual, those senses that we know, movement, like tasting. Those are the senses that we're gonna be exposed to, which will be linked to how can we use those senses to memorize information. Also, we have we're gonna be exposed to mnemonics for academic work. This is simply the techniques that we're gonna be exposed to when throughout our presentation. So we'll start with, one may ask, what is memorization? What is this actually when we talk about memorization? If I need to know the difference between cramming and memorization, and hence you answered that memorization is good for exams. So we need to know what is memorization. Memorizing, it's simply a mental process. And it has different types of memorization. We have sensory memory, we have short memory, we have long-term memory, of which we will go into details along during our presentation. Also, we're going to link the sentences that I spoke about, this memorization, that it also can be linked with sentences that we use every day so that we can memorize or recall, retrieve certain information whenever we need them. And with memorization, it's not only good for academic work, also even in our daily life. When we go to a store to maybe do our grocery, sometimes you forget that one thing, and next thing, it's a time wasted. You need to go back to the store and then buy that thing that you forget. So we need this, right? So moving forward, we'll now dive into short-term memory, the difference between short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory, it works in hand with cramming. Cramming, you cram information for seconds to hours. Imagine if your short-term memory can only hold information for 1 hour. Then maybe it's exam, before the exam, a night before, you cross night, right? 12, you wake up at 12, you memorize, you cram certain information from 12 o'clock, and then you have your exams that will commence at what? Start at 10 o'clock in the morning. So you can you look at the gap? Yes. So imagine if your short-term memory can only hold an hour. So it means around 1 o'clock, the information that you memorize, it will be fainted away. So it works like a short-term memory. So short-term memory is not also, it's not good for exams, right? Number one, because it holds information for a short period of time. Also, there's a limited capacity. So the research says that you can hold information in your short-term memory for seconds to 3 hours. So it's not good with cramming and short-term memory. But again, others can say, I can work with short-term memory. Of which short-term memory, if you want to use you want to store information in your short-term memory, you can you need to repeat the information. You need to practice whatever that you have stored into your memory. Whatever that you have encoded, whatever that you have received, you need to revise it. That's when you can use the short-term memory. But then if we want to be on the safe side, we want to transfer our information, of which it will happen mentally, we need to do a certain, I mean, there are techniques that we will look into, which will help us to transform information from short-term memory to long-term memory. With a long-term memory, it's good for exams. You can store information for a lifespan. Other qualification that we are doing, we're gonna need that information. Whatever that we are doing in our the that are teaching us, we will need that in our working environment, right? So imagine if you cram a certain thing, I mean a certain concept, and then in your workplace, first day at work, they ask you, can you please maybe can you demonstrate this and that? You crammed the day when you were writing. So we need a short-term memory. Do you agree with me? Yeah. So with a long-term memory, we also it can happen on a deliberate conscious or undeliberate conscious. I mean, with this simply mean sometimes whenever you take notes down, you revise your work, you oftenly visit your notes. It's happening deliberately. You have intention of storing that information, but then sometimes it can happen accidentally. Let's say now you see my face, you are able to capture my face, then tomorrow you see me again, third day you see me again. It's happening accidentally, right? Because you don't have intention to see me every day, so it's happening. Even when you are doing your notes, you see the certain word, it comes more often, but you don't like to see it, but it keeps on coming. You come to the next chapter, the same thing, the next chapter, the same thing. That's when we say sometimes mental process can happen accidentally. Moving forward, we'll look at what is memorization process. Memorization process, as hence I mentioned that we're gonna link the sentences to memorize certain information or whatever that we need to retrieve at the later stage. It's simply in our daily life. We receive information from social media, we receive information from people, from your notes, during the study groups, during your lecturing classrooms. So that information, the moment you hear that information, you encode that information to purposefully to restore the information so that you can be able to recall the information at the later stage. Hence, I mentioned that this mental process, it can happen while you are aware or when you are not aware. So we'll look at how it works. Stages of memory. When we encode information, we store it in our short-term memory, in our sensory memory, from sensory memory to short-term memory, from short-term memory to long-term memory, right? And then other information, it goes, for us to store it in our long-term memory, we should give it a meaning. For instance, if you are studying a biology, a module, maybe it has a biology terminologies. So you need to retrieve a certain concept. You need to retrieve a certain terminology, right? So you preview that, revise it, retrieve that information consciously. Moving forward, we will look at how can we increase our information retention. So on the screen there are pointers that will help us to increase our information. So before day you can start summarizing your information, you need to preview a night before in the morning, like before 24 hours. Check your information before you move to the new chapter. If you are studying, don't start the new chapter, go back to just give yourself 30 minutes to revise you've studied the previous day, and then after you have done revise, then that's when you can move on with the new chapter. Our information retention. Also, you rehearse. It's not a crime to rehearse. No one is born with this. That's we have a gift of rehearsing. It's a tool. You need to do it. You need to practice it. You practice whatever that you need to do it. It's not a crime, students. Again, a regular sleep. Now we have a month before our exams commence. So it doesn't mean you need to sleep across overnight every night because you want to pass, because your aim is to get distinction. Somehow it will affect your memorization. It will affect you mentally. It will affect you physically. You'll be exhausted. You'll be tired. Are we together so far? Thank you. So moving forward, we'll now dive into sentences that will help us to memorize the information we need. As Michelle explained, the different learning styles. Even yesterday, some of us we know which learning style works best for us. Who am I in terms of learning style, right? So we're gonna take those and link them with sentences that we use every day. With this, we have students that they best learn when they see things. So those students, they best, like, they see pictures, they see diagrams, they write, they draw diagrams, they can link a certain object just for them to create or to memorize certain information. Again, students that works can listen to, maybe you listen to my voice, it can you can best memorize information listening to recordings. And then we have those that they work well if they're moving around. Whenever they memorize, they're moving around, they say it loud. Sometimes there's a myth around that technique, that those that whenever in the library or in the study room, they move around when memorizing. We see them as if they're slow learners. That's a myth. It's one of the technique actually. If it works best for you, do it. So moving forward, we'll look this picture. It shows the different techniques that we will dive into on our next slides. We have acronomy, we have acrostic, rhythms, chunking, clustering, imagery. So with this, we'll look at number one with mnemonic academics. These are techniques that are going to help us to best memorize the information we need. And then they also can be, it's more of a shortcut of memorizing. And also it helps us to store information deliberately. Also, they help us to maybe we're going to link information. I mean, we're going to link object sentences for us to memorize a certain information. So one can ask, why do we need techniques? How do we incorporate these techniques with the learning styles that we know, with who we are? Also, with the on this screen shows that short-term memory can only hold limited information. That's why we need this mnemonics. That's why we need these techniques, right? So we'll start with this. It explains that we need mnemonics because it will be able to link our senses, and also the tips to use these techniques, that be creative whenever you link objects, whenever you use diagrams, object, be creative. Also that whenever you use these techniques, you can use bigger pictures, use colorful diagrams, highlight. If you are that student that whenever you take notes, you highlight with colorful highlighters. So with these mnemonics techniques, there are principles. We have three principles. We have imagination. So whenever we use this, somehow we're gonna imagine, create mental pictures to link with the information that we want to retrieve later stage. Also, we will be able to associate objects. Also, we will be look at location, like people who best study whenever they move around, right? So number one, we look at the link method. What is a link method? In the word it says on its own, we're gonna link pictures to memorize information. For example, you want to memorize a grocery list, right? So you want to buy maybe on your list you have 10 fruits that you want to buy at the store. You have orange, apple, mango, whatever fruits that you need. So are we going to link this? You will start by saying, okay, I need a grape. I need grapes. Grapes will help me. In the morning, I will do a juice. But then with the juice, you create a story when linking the object. In the morning, since I'm a gym person, I will start doing my smoothie with a grape. But the grape, I cannot do a smoothie with a one. I need orange. I need this. Like, you create a story. Or maybe example, in you are studying a biology, you want to memorize a diagrams, for instance, a plant cell, human cell. So you know how hectic it can be to memorize the whole structure. So you try to link. There is a cell. There is other thing that I don't know. The whole thing about the plant cell, human cells. But then you try to link those. You create a story. Moving forward, we'll look at the second one. The second one is a method loci. Method loci simply means location. So, for instance, you want to memorize types of planets for your exam. So you have Mercury, Jupiter, Earth. Okay, so the list is going on. So you want to memorize that. Imagine your living dining room. You start in your dining room. You see, you picture Earth. It's a mental process, as I mentioned. You picture Earth. Actually, my room looks like an Earth. It's big. But then in this Earth, you see odd drop. You move towards your drop. You will link odd drop with Venus. Do we have Venus as a? Yes, Venus. And then there is a table. You link that table with Mars. So this is how you create. This is how you will be able to retrieve information that you want to call at the later stage, unlike cramming. So we'll look at acronomy. With acronomy, it's nice because you create your own word sentences. Okay, I will move to the next slide because it shows the example. So, and then I will also cover the slides that we skipped. So with this, for example, as I mentioned that maybe you want to memorize 9 planets that we have. So you start the tip around this. You take first letter of each word. So let's say we have number 1, it's a Mercury. It's M. It starts with M. You start with M. Then you start a word. How can I, start a word with M? Maybe my very excellent mother just served us with nachos. So then M, it will stand for Mercury. It will stand for Venus. Actually, these are techniques that I use when I was studying, and it still works best for me. You just create your own sentence by using each sentence, even for your essay. Moving to rhyme. We can associate this with rappers, people who do hip hop. You know, when they rhyme, the words sound the same. So with this, in our studies, let's say you want to memorize, okay, we'll go back to you want to memorize different types of the planet. You start with Mercury. You can pair a Mercury with one of the words, maybe it can sound like two. Okay, it's not sounding the same, but I'm just giving example. So you can pair that, or maybe for example, so that this can be practical. Not one. Did you hear the sound one? Then you can pair one with bonus. One bonus. It sounds the same, like rhyming is there. So whenever you are studying, take that one word and then link anything that they can rhyme. Then the other tip around this, you need to take whenever you make examples, like make sure that you make things that they sound similar. You cannot take beauty with Zandele. That it does not link. It does not even sound the same. Are we still together? Yes. No confusion so far? Okay. So then we move into chunk. Chunk is when we try to summarize information. We take a large volume of information we break it into smaller pieces. And then with this one, you have maybe essay that you need to write in your exams, maybe for 200 words or 500 words. So try to chunk the information. So the tip around this is that also make sure that you found a correlation between words whenever you group certain words. if you want to try to break 500 essay, you want to memorize that 500 essay into a smaller essay. Do I make sense? Yes, like a technique is you break the information into smaller pieces. So with this, for example, you want to memorize a bank account or a phone number. With the phone number, it's simple. We have 082334422. It's 10 numbers. So normally this is the technique that we always do to memorize our numbers. I will start with the 082. You know, this is a piece of already I've created a first bunch. Secondly, 48234. It's 4 numbers. The last 3 digits also I will group them. So this simply you just group. So whenever let's say I want to memorize the first sentence of my essay, I am a Unisa graduate in 2020. 2020. This it sounds simple, right? But then in your exam, in a minute, that information can fade away. That sentence that I'm a Unisa graduate, it can fade away. So, but if you want to memorize this, I'm Unisa graduate, the break, you already grouped that together. And then in 2020, you group together. This is how you can maybe summarize the whole information or essay. So, in the benefits of the chunking information, it's like we would be able to call information faster because now you know, like 082, it's fast. 833, fast. So you call information fast, and then also it reduces exam anxieties because confidence. Also, it can prove and you can improve on your ability to maybe correlate information together, right? Practicing of chunking techniques. So another technique is we prioritize a key information. We identify similarities. Hence, I mentioned that you make a correlation between the words whenever you are grouping certain information. We find links, we associate information that we want to retrieve at the later stage. We have clustering. Then with clustering, it's a great strategy for students who memorize information by looking at them. Those that prefer to, you know, they look at the pictures, they look at the diagrams, they highlight. So this can work best for them. So the first step for this, you review your study material, you review your notes, and then when you review your notes, you identify what is important. You group the key concepts with this in this where if you are deciding to use this clustering. And then with this, it's the best way to answer essay questions. Whenever you do this, you can also do a self-test questions in this clustering technique. I think this is the end of our session, and I hope you have learned, and not only for academic purposes, even for our daily life purposes. So I will take it over to our program director, and yeah, she will direct us where to go from here. Thank you so much, students.
Thank you so much, Beauty. I think the information that you just shared, it was relevant, as we know that all of our students are busy with their studies, and we are almost approaching the first semester assignment deadlines. So I'm sure they will take the tools that you've just shared so that they can able to survive and to their studies. And then without a waste of time, I can see we are now left with less than 10 minutes. Students, we are not taking hands. Please do not raise your hands because we're not gonna give you an option to ask your question. However, you can post the question to a Q&A. It's where it will be attended. Beauty and Sane, can you please assist with the questions so that we can able to address them before we conclude the day? Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Isma, I'm just going to address the students in the room for a bit. So the students in the room, the evaluation you have is my evaluation. So yes, there's a there that talks to the overall workshop, but the other questions pertain to my presentation. For Beauty, we will be sending you a particular link for her section. But just so you know, when you are filling that out, we're going to we're going to take the online questions and answer that so we can end the online session by 12:30. For you, if you have any questions, once we've ended this online session, then I will answer your questions here within the room.
Thank you, Michelle. Sunny, you can proceed.
We do have a question. The student is asking, so our sleeping hours contribute to our level of concentration?
Yes, absolutely. Sleep is related to two particular things. Number one, it's related to your energy levels and it's related to your concentration. The other way it's related is to your memory. So when you sleep and you get a good night's sleep, your brain, when you're sleeping, it actually does a lot of work. So it actually starts storing memory. So if, for example, before an exam, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, you're actually going to find your attention in the exam and your concentration is not what it should be. And then whatever you have studied, let's say you reviewed things the day before, it might affect your memory. So when you are studying in general and when you're studying when it comes to exams, it's really important to have a good night's sleep. And for adult age group, we're looking at a minimum of 6 hours, maximum of 9 hours. We don't want to actually go to 9 hours, but for each person, it could be a little bit different. Maybe you function at like 7 hours and you're good to go. But getting that sleep is important for your memory. So don't cross night before an exam. You need that sleep. You need the brain to do its work while you're sleeping because that's what it is doing while you're sleeping.
Another question a student is asking, I have used the linking method before, but I'm only managed to remember it short term. How do I overcome this?
Okay. I looked at Beauty and she said I must answer. So I would really say one of the things that might be a hurdle or an obstacle, and we'd have to chat about this a little bit more for me to understand how you're using it. But the one thing that comes to mind for me that could be an obstacle is if your studying is distributed. Because remember, when you are using a particular strategy, when you first use that method, if you're not reviewing that content over a longer period of time, you're going to forget that. But I'm also going to say, if you're using the linking method and you don't know your learning style, you might not be using the best strategy for your learning style. So those are the two things I would say. But I'd also just suggest, if you want us to unpack that in detail, book a session with me and then I can help you unpack that one because there might be information that I don't have, so I won't be able to adequately answer that.
Another question is, so is it a problem when you master cramming?
Is it a problem when you're cramming? Is that the question?
Yes, is it a problem when you master cramming?
When you master cramming.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to say, I don't know about mastering cramming, okay? I would beg to differ around that, but I am going to say some people work well under pressure. That doesn't mean that you mustn't have your distributing study sessions. You should still have that. Remember, you might have mastered cramming at a school level. It's easy to master it at that level because you don't have as much content to cover. At a university level, the content that you're covering is much larger. It might be more complex. So where you feel you've mastered it at a school level, it might fail you at a university level. But if you're someone that does work well under pressure, then I would just say how you structure your time does become important. But I cannot, as a psychologist, I cannot endorse the cramming.
Okay, the other story with framing and memorizing. God forbid you remember my very excellent mother story and actually forgot what actually stand for.
Thank you for that comments. Any other questions?
I have a short memory. I can't function at night and more active-minded during the day. So I like to read and be ahead and like finding short explanations on sentences. Break down what I studied per module by self-test. Is that an effective study skill?
Okay, just repeat the last one to me. Sorry, I'm listening from the laptop. So just repeat that last section for me, Sane, or read it one more time.
The whole question. So the
Or
question here
the
is
second part. So after that, yes,
okay.
go ahead.
So they're saying, is that effective, what they've just stated, of having a short memory and can't function at night, but they are more active-minded during the day?
Okay, so when it comes to you can always, when it comes to when you say a short memory, we can identify if you need us to help you identify what are the issues that are causing you to be forgetful, or what is it causing you to not, what's causing you to not retain something into memory. So number one, we can help you if you're finding that that's a challenge, so we can pinpoint where the obstacle is. But when it comes to you working better during the day, or your mind is more active during the day than the night, that's something normal because we each have different times that we function well. Even in terms of your learning style, you might find that you work in bursts of energy. Sometimes you're energized, and at that time it means, okay, you've got to get to your study. Other times you're not energized. Give you an example for myself. I work better when it's quiet and in the night than during the day. So for each person, when you study best is going to differ. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to know when you study best and optimize on that.
Okay,
Questions, Sane?
okay. I struggle with essays. I feel that it's because I'm an older student. Is age a factor? Please provide some good advice for improving the student and his memory.
Okay, so age is not a factor. We have students that are much older students. Age is not a factor. It would be how you're going about your studying and the strategies that you're using. Age will only be a factor if you have some health issues that are maybe affecting you. But other than that, actually just getting older doesn't mean that you can't study effectively. When it comes to essays, there might be particular obstacles with writing an essay that you are struggling with. It could be how do you go about tackling writing an essay. And the other thing is, if you haven't studied for a long time and then you're coming back into the studying environment, you will find now your brain has to adjust and you have to acclimatize to it all over again. So maybe if you haven't studied after a while, it's about finding the strategies that actually work for you. But if there are health issues that have developed with age, that can sometimes have an impact on your studying, on your concentration, or on your memory.
Okay, our last question, it says, does everyone have a specific style, or can you be a combination of both?
Okay, so when it comes to the learning styles that I spoke about today, which is taking in information through your senses, you can be a combination. You won't just be, most people are not just one. So you could be a combination between visual and auditory, or visual and kinesthetic. You will see when you take that questionnaire, on that link, when you do that, you will see the scores that will come up, and you look at your two highest scores, and that will tell you the strategies and the learning style that you fall under. You might be a combination when it comes to this particular learning style when we're taking it in through our senses, but the overall learning style that I covered yesterday, you will be one specific learning style.
Thank you so much, Michelle. But can you please maybe share if, because I can see the other student ask if the food that they are consuming might also affect their studies before we can
Yes.
conclude.
Yes, absolutely. Food is very important. I think a beauty on one of her slides, she mentioned diet there as well. Food affects two things. It affects your energy level and concentration, and it affects your mood. So it's really important because if you're having, let's say, lots of sugar, you are going to get a burst of energy, and then your energy is going to drop. Right? So then that means you're only working for that particular time, and then your energy drops. If you are using energy drinks and those BioPlus sachets and all of those type of things, you are going to get, because it's got caffeine and sugar in it, you are going to get a burst of energy. You feel like you're going, you're concentrating, and then you're going to crash. And when you crash, then you're going to feel like you need to sleep. And then you obviously at that point, you're not able to concentrate and continue with your studying. So you need to just have a balanced diet. You can't drink coffee. Absolutely. Somebody in the room looks at me like, please don't stop me from drinking coffee. You can't drink coffee, but in moderation. You don't want to overdo it. You can take, and in energy drinks, I'm just going to say no to energy drinks. But supplements that help you with energy, absolutely. Remember, food is fuel. So think about it like petrol in the car. If you're not putting that petrol in the car, if you're not putting a good quality of petrol in the car, your brain needs the fuel to do the things that you're wanting it to do when you're actually studying. So yes, it absolutely is an important factor. So much, Program Director, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you so much once again, student. I hope you have benefited a lot from this workshop. And we will continue to host other workshops, and the invite will be shared via your email, like what we did today and yesterday. And I think on the Q&A, we have shared the link, the evaluation link, where you complete and evaluate our presenters for today. We will really appreciate the feedback from you, so that, yeah. And also the booking link will also be shared with you. It's also there on the Q&A. It's one of the links where you can book a one-on-one counseling session with one of our student counselor, depending where you are. Because if you open that link, it will show you all the regions that are available at Unisa, and then you have to select yours. It doesn't mean that, let's say you are in Gauteng or Northwest or Limpopo or Eastern Cape, you would have to book with Michelle. No, Michelle is KZN student counselor. So you have to use your region student counselors. They are also available in that link that we share. As long as you will select your region, it will indicate who are the counselors there that can assist you, because it might happen that your appointment need to be face to face, and then obviously you have to go to your nearest Unisa to see that particular counselor for your session, because our session are available face to face, online and telephonical. So please do book a session with your nearest counselor. Yeah, once again, we thank you so much for attending this. And let me see if we have anything that for next week. No,
already
we
shared
don't.
it.
We'll have something in April, I think, if I'm not mistaken. The upcoming one, it will be in April on the 2nd. Yeah, I think next week it will be a short break for our workshop so that you can maybe focus to whatever that you are busy with in terms of assignment and stuff. But on Wednesday, the 2nd, we will be hosting the ODEL, of which is the Open Distance E-Learning and the Power of Study groups. So, yes. So it's where we will be sharing how important to have a study group and how do you get hold of your group as a Unisa student. And note that our events, our one-on-one sessions for student counselor are for Unisa registered students. So if you are not registered with Unisa, unfortunately, we cannot accommodate you. However, you can book a session at your institution, because we are aware that some of our students, they invite their friends who are studying somewhere else to attend and benefit to our workshop. That is not a crime. However, when it's come to one-on-one session, please book at your institution, because the service is catered only for Unisa students and is free of charge. Thank you once again. I think we have now come to an end of our workshop. See you on the 2nd of April. Thank you and goodbye, students.